Okay, so Eli was kind of this Tom Sawyer guy because his parents, he was born in 1916, and his parents passed away in the 1918 pandemic, which got so many people. So he was left to grow up with his grandparents. And back then, if you were an orphan, you kind of got bounced around between all the cousins and the grandparents, and so you weren't really, looked after like you would if it was one of your own kids, if it was just this cousin that you didn't really, anyway. So he was kind of this Tom Sawyer guy. His mom died when he was 6 years old, and his dad died when he was 9 years old. And he was telling me that when he was 9 years old, I suppose after his mom died, dads always, they're not quite as careful with kids as moms are. And so he learned how to trap, and he would hike from where he was from Mount Olive. He would follow the creek clear up to Blanchard Caverns, which is where it was like at least 15 miles. 9 years old, and he would take all his traps with him and hike 15 miles up the creek to lay these traps, and then he would sleep overnight in the Blanchard Caverns. Didn't know about it back then, but there's a big overhang, big cave type thing up there to begin with, and so that's where he would stay. And the next day he'd come back and collect all his traps and come back to the house. Well, 9 years old. Can you imagine 9 years old, like kid this age today doing that? So anyway, he grew up mostly with his grandparents after his dad died, and his grandparents were interesting. His On his Cherokee side, his grandfather was the last Cherokee scout in the cavalry. And so when he retired, he was awarded 500 acres on the that adjoined the White River. And so it was kind of prime property. Um, and the other side of his family was in the little town of Mount Olive. His grandfather was considered the town squire because he was so wise. He was a Druidic Scottish guy, and so he had, that his family, the Scottish family, had fled religious persecution, and soon found out that the people on the East Coast were not much different than what they left behind, and so they had to go inland and try to find their religious freedom. And they met up with the Cherokees and discovered that they had such similarities. If you've seen my first video, you see all the things that were similar. And so they intermarried. And so, anyway, there was a lot of that. In the Ozarks, there was a lot of intermarriage going on. And during the Trail of Tears, the people who intermarried did not get picked up with that Trail of Tears thing. And so they are still there. They call them the old settler band, still there in the Ozarks. Well, when he was not long after his dad died, he started having these dreams of going into a cave every night, recurring dreams. And he was reading from a great big book. And every night he would read a little bit more in this great big book. And in the dream, he could understand what he was reading. But when he woke up, he realized that it was in a language that didn't give him many words to explain what he was learning to anybody else. So he eventually he thought he was going to go crazy if he didn't tell somebody. So he ended up telling his Cherokee grandmother, and she took this as a sign that he should be taught the sacred teachings. And so he was taught at a very young age before it was legal. And so he had to memorize these things. And it's a good thing he did, because otherwise we wouldn't have these things today. Uh, after, let's see, uh, during the Dust Bowl, it was only two choices. You either had to become a bum or you, you had to go into the army. And so he went into the army. And during his stay in the army, he's worked on getting a degree in world religions. And so at the end of World War I, he was docking ships in Japan. And one of the last things that he did to get that PhD was he wrote his thesis on Zen. And he was admitted to the Forbidden City, and he learned from Daisetsu Kizaru Suzuki, which is a great Zen teacher. Anyway, he spent 20 years in the army, and so he had this heart condition because of the army food. And so when he got out of the army, he developed a health food store because he needed the health food. And so he eventually had a chain of health food stores in New Mexico. And was just shortly before 1970, he had a heart attack and he died for 7 minutes, they said. And while he was gone, he had this vision that he was surrounded by a bunch of people in robes. And they told him that that what he had learned was important, and that if he would share it with people, he could go back. And so apparently he decided he would, because he came back. And so it was funny that right away the lady that he was married to decided he had become really different. He wasn't the person that she married anymore. And so they divorced, and she got most of his health food stores, and he took what was left and came to Arkansas. But after he had moved to Arkansas, then he had this vision of, it was in the early morning hours of 1970, of Christmas Day, 1970, the stars came together. And during that time, he had this vision that these secret teachings that were previously kept from just anybody should be open to the public, to anybody who felt that they were akin to the earth and the sky. And so he was docking ships in Japan, and so he knew how to work a sextant. One of those things where they used to be able to guide ships, I guess, with a sextant. And I've looked up how they work, and I could not tell you. I don't know how it works. But anyway, apparently they used to be able to steer ships by guiding by the North Star. And so they had to know. So anyway, he got out his sextant, and he tried to figure out where on Earth this star had aligned over, because that's where he wanted to go start his lectures. And he decided it was over Minneapolis or near there. And so that's where he first started his lecture. And that's where I saw him. I was living there at the time, and I missed his first lecture, but I was there for the second one. Nobody goes to Minneapolis in January. So I'm not sure when I think it must have been February or March when he came up there. But the first time. And then, so then I started learning from him up there. And oh my gosh, when I first saw him, he was lecturing in the Llewellyn bookstore, and I think he was talking about the legends, because I was just my jaw was on the floor listening to him, and all of a sudden everybody in the room had a bright aura. I mean, I have never seen that before, and I've never seen it since. But holy cow, it was just such a shock that it was like a big signpost for me that said, something weird is going on here. I need to pay more attention to this. And so I had to go home and think about this strange thing that had happened. And finally I went back to the bookstore and I said, how can I get involved with this? How can I get a hold of him? And they said, well, there's classes, da, 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 da. And so I took the philosophy, and wasn't too long after that, I decided if I was going to learn this, I had to go get it from him because nobody else could teach it like he was teaching it. So that's my story. What was Eli doing? Well, he wrote this down because he says he wanted to offer a general background of thought or philosophy that is conducive to acquiring and maintaining clarity of thought and emotions, so that our minds would be free to create as they were intended to. You know, we were supposed to be able to think up things and have it happen. We're supposed to be able to create, and we have in the past. We've just forgotten how, because this society does not allow you to think correctly so that you can make things like that happen. And how you think about the world makes a big difference. So take your time with these studies, because you need to incorporate this into how you're looking at life if you want to make this work for you. So Eli was part Cherokee and part Scotch-Irish and traveled over much of the world in his lifetime of work and study. These ideas include thoughts from many different cultures, including what is known today as the old religion of the Celts and the ways of several Native American tribes. So who here has Scotch and Irish in your background? Yes, it's
I
just
do.
amazing to me how many people that are attracted to this have that same background. It's interesting. That's me. I'm English and Scotch and Irish. So anyway, he says, within all religions, there's always been a simple religion taught to the masses and a special, deeper philosophy taught to an inner circle. This is true of Islam, Buddhism, Christianity, the Mormon Church, and the Catholic Church. So why do you suppose this is true? Why would these people say, oh, okay, we're going to save this for just special people? Why would they do that? You got an idea?
Because they weren't willing to learn, to dive deeper into the way of nature.
Yes, because not everybody is interested in this stuff. You know, a lot of people think, oh, what are you doing that for? But no, and so you don't want to, like the Bible says, you don't want to throw your pearls before swine. You got to make sure that the people who are getting this are really, truly interested. So that's why I make you go through all these hoops to get into this class, is because I want to make sure you're really on the hunt for this. Okay, so it's not for everyone. This practice was and is also true of less well-known religions, including that of the Native American. There's a simple public way of life and thought for the individual, and another for the members of the medicine priesthood. This secret, sacred philosophy has been lost to many tribes due to the deliberate destruction of the old-time medicine people, their life ways and teachings, and the conversion of the Indian nations to Christianity. It was illegal to talk about this till 1978. Can you believe it? 1978. It's just so the advanced teachings of the good medicine way were usually taught by the medicine people to their sons and daughters, because they were less dangerous to teach that to than other people, or to any person in the village who showed a certain awareness of life around them and asked the medicine people about these perceptions. And that's important. You have to ask. You know, if you say you take your car to a mechanic and you say, okay, change the oil, and you drive off and you come back and pick it up later, you didn't learn anything. You know, maybe you learned that whether or not the mechanic that you took it to can do the work you asked, but you didn't learn how to do it yourself. And so if you wanted, they don't allow you to do this anymore, but used to, you could hang around and bug the mechanic and say, oh, why are you doing that? And how come you're doing this? You know, the more questions you ask, the more you can learn. That's the thing. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Okay. So if sufficient interest and proficiency was shown, The young man or woman was adopted by the medicine teacher and initiated into the teachings of good medicine. These include the arts of healing and special mental training, including what is referred to today as extrasensory perception. All of these studies and the philosophy were given orally, and the apprentice medicine person was required to commit everything to memory. Wow. Can you imagine having to memorize this? You know, when I was first getting this, there were no lessons. We spent an hour writing out all these numbered sentences in here. And the next week we would we'd discuss the questions that pertain to that lesson. And then we'd spend the rest of the hour writing out the next lesson. I mean, writer's cramp and oh my gosh. But
Wow.
you remembered it that way. So memorizing is good, and writing is good too, but you got to spend some time with this. You know, his lessons say to take 5 days and think about just a little bit of this and meditate on it and see how you can incorporate that into your life. Okay, so his training was begun in 1927 when he was 13. You know, that doesn't work out because he was born in 1916. So if he was 13, he would have been 20, 16 and 13 is 29.
Dang.
So I don't know. It doesn't work out anyway. I can't do math right now. But anyway, he didn't really know when he was born because back then, you know, there was no hospitals. They didn't really keep good records. He was born on a boat. His father was a fisherman. And so they had a midwife. And when he got old enough, his parents died, you know, so nobody knew. And so he asked the midwife when he got old enough to wonder about it. And the midwife could only remember that the river was high that year. And so in 1916, the river flooded. So maybe that was the year he was born. But we don't really know. So it's kind of, some of his dates don't really match up because we don't really know when he was born. The Good Medicine Society is and always has been a fraternal, health-oriented, and religious organization whose advanced teachings have only been made known to those who sincerely desired and sought a deeper understanding of nature and the workings of the Great Spirit. This deeper philosophy has never been a part of the majority of people's thoughts, for most are not prepared to comprehend and accept the simple truths which can be found in the life around them. It's just not for everyone. And so if you decide that, you know, you don't want to hear any more about this, I completely understand because it's just not for everybody. Well, we are in the time of the coyote. You know, we moved away from the Pisces influence, and now we're in Aquarius, which is represented by the coyote. It says, in the early morning hours of December 25, 1970, 3 of the 7 planets, Jupiter, Venus, and Mars, were seen together in conjunction, appearing as a bright star in the heavens. About 4,000 years ago, Moses, lying in the desert looking through an acacia bush, saw a similar star, which he described as a burning bush. The Great Spirit spake to Mosiah, and he was to use his training in the wisdom of the Egyptian mysteries as a basis for the new religion for the age of the sheep, or Aries, which had just begun. So the age of the sheep was the Jewish religion. And so they had their laws and their judges who were the supreme person. Then about 2,000 years after that, the Chaldean astrologers witnessed another dawn star. They were led to the village of Bethlehem, and they knew then that the baby Jeshua ben Yosef was destined to usher in the new religion of the age of the fish, or Pisces, after being trained in the wisdom and healing methods of the Essenes. So Jesus taught that religion for the age of the fish. You know, he was considered the fisher of men. And so he threw people into the water and caught them out like fish to baptize them. And so that's we had the many miracles in which we could not know, and so we had to believe, and believing was the thing, the way to get close to the Creator during the Pisces age. But now we are in the time of the Coyote, the Aquarian age. It says, when the dawn star was seen in 1970 appearing over the center of the American continent, Eli Katoga received a vision that the religion for the age of the Coyote, or Aquarius, was to be based upon the old wisdom religion of the Native Americans. The increased interest in Indian affairs since that time, along with the increased numbers of people who are searching for wisdom, natural medicine, natural living, have since proven the need for the manifestation of this vision. The Good Medicine Society has therefore opened its teachings to all those who wish to learn the philosophy and healing methods which comprise the good medicine. So it's a good thing too, because I wouldn't be here teaching this to you if he had decided that, no, just Cherokee. And boy, I'll tell you, a lot of the tribal people will tell you that they don't like this idea at all. And I get a lot of not very pleasant mail from from people saying, you should not be doing this. This is, So, I try to tell them, well, Eli had this vision, and so that's why we're in. They don't like that idea at all. But anyway, I'm going to do it anyway. So there you are. As the medicine of the sheep or Aries is to obey the Great Spirit, and the medicine of the fish is to believe in him, the Coyote uses his medicine of gentle wisdom to guide people to know the Great Spirit through the teachings of good medicine. And once once you've had your own personal experience with the divine, then and nobody can tell you otherwise. A lot of these people, they go to the Christian churches. I think they go because they want to believe, but they don't really believe. And so this is teaching you how to have your own experience. So you don't have to read the Bible. You don't have to, any of that stuff, because you will know for yourself. So in order to know, the people must be taught, and to teach is the mission of the Good Medicine Society. So you're not expected to believe any of this, but you are expected to go check it out and see if it jives with your own personal experience. Like many Native Americans, Eli felt that being an Indian is a state of mind. It is not a matter of skin or hair color. If one thinks like an Indian or a real person, he or she is a real person. Now there's an idea. What is a real person? What does that mean? A lot of people say, oh, get real. That's not a real thing. What does it mean to be real? What do you think?
Not fake.
Jeannie, what did you say?
I would say not fake. There's
fake.
Everything is perception and not reality.
Yes, not fake. It's like it's if you have a pet, a cat or a dog, when they're hungry, they're hungry because they tell you with everything they got. And just because they can't speak doesn't mean that they're dumb, because they can get their point across. But because we have the power of speech, we can be thinking one thing and say something completely different. We have the power to manipulate and to conceal and to deceive. That the power of speech is really not a marker of superiority. But I think being real is a marker of being superior. Okay, where are we? So Oshina said in Profiles in Wisdom, he says, it doesn't have anything to do with the color of your skin. It's the way you live your life. The only thing we have to give is the way we live our lives. If you live on this land and you have ancestors sleeping in this land, I believe that makes you native to this land. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin. I was raised not to look at people racially. What I was taught is that we're flowers in the Great Spirit's garden. We share a common root, and the root is Mother Earth. The garden is beautiful because it has different colors in it, and those colors represent different traditions and cultural backgrounds. So what do you think? Do you agree with that idea? That it doesn't really matter what you look like, it matters how you think.
Correct. I agree.
Okay. So the purpose of this course is to provide an exposure of the old philosophy and teachings of good medicine to all who feel the call of nature and wish to be Wiyaki, a real person. That's one of the things we say when we get together is we have this chant that says, Aya means
Aya.
I am. Aya Wiyaki, I am a
Wiyaki.
real person. So, and we try to be a real person. And I hope if you don't walk away with anything else, you know that I'm being real with you. The philosophy of good medicine is not advanced as a religious doctrine which the student must believe. Eli taught that each person must come to know the Great Spirit for him or herself, for it is through this personal relationship that we discover our own medicine and thus determine our own path in life. So you are not expected to believe this, but you are expected to check it out. You know, does it jive with your memories of past experiences? Does it go along with that? Is there a way that you could go into the forest and check this out now? Maybe you've never done that before, but this would be a good time to go check it out. There are certain truths which are inherent in every religion and every tribe which teaches and practices good medicine. Have you noticed this? There used to be this little meme that went around that had like a dozen different religions, and they all said the same thing in a different way, you know, do unto others as you would have them do to you. It's kind of like the universal thing. Don't hurt people, you know. So I think that there's main things that are inherent in every religion. And basically the way that we practice it is what makes it different. It's not really what we believe that's different. It's how we practice it that's different. The understanding of these concepts will free the mind from the crippling restrictions which have been imposed by the invasions of Turtle Island, past and present, and certain religious doctrinal practices of the dominant society. That is true. Okay, the philosophy of good medicine includes quotations by leaders and wise men from several different Native American tribes over a 200-year period, which clearly show the widespread acceptance of these concepts. So that's what I'm saying is that they all have pretty much the same philosophy. It's just how it's practiced that's different. So what is this religion of nature? It says the basis of all concepts found in the religion of the Native American is nature herself. Nature is our teacher. It says all truth can be found in nature. She has everything that we need. The Indian did not speculate on abstract concepts and ideas. It was felt that if the Great Spirit wished a truth to be known, he would cause this truth to be made manifest in nature for people to observe and understand. And that's true. You know, most of our advancements are based on things we've learned from insects and different critters and things like that. Eli said, the Indian made an effort to know of spiritual things from his own observations of nature, because all truth can be found in nature. There is a spiritual beauty in the realization that all the world has been deliberately made or created and is in perfect balance ecologically. And that's not by chance. Lastly, this knowing is based upon spiritual revelation of the truth to the individual. When it happens for you, then you know, and no one else can tell you otherwise. And that is the truth, boy. That's what I want for each one of you, is to have your own experience. Civilized people depend too much on man-made printed pages. I turn to the Great Spirit's book, which is the whole of his creation. You can read a big part of that book if you study nature. You know, if you take all your books and lay them out under the sun and let the snow, rain, and insects work on them for a while, there'll be nothing left. But the Great Spirit has provided you and me with the opportunity for study in nature's university. The forests, the rivers, the mountains, and the animals, which include us. I have been listening to this one guy who says that if the Bible had never been written, you could read it all in the stars and it would still be there. So that's kind of an interesting idea. Chief Luther Standing Bear says, the Lakota was a true naturist, a lover of nature. He loved the earth and all things of the earth, the attachment growing with age. The old people came literally to love the soil, and they sat or reclined on the ground with a feeling of being close to a mothering power. It was good for the skin to touch the earth, and the old people liked to remove their moccasins and walk with bare feet on the sacred earth. Their teepees were built on the earth, and their altars were made of earth. The birds that flew in the air came to rest on the earth, and it was the final abiding place of all things that lived and grew. The soil was soothing and strengthening, cleansing and healing. That's why the old Indian still sits upon the earth instead of propping himself up and away from its life-giving forces. For him, to sit or lie upon the ground is to be able to think more deeply and to feel more keenly. He can see more clearly into the mysteries of life and come closer in kinship to other lives about him. Kinship with all creatures of the earth, sky, and water was a real and active principle. For the animal and bird world, there existed a brotherly feeling that kept the Lakota safe among them. And so close did some of the Lakotas come to their feathered and furred friends that in true brotherhood they spoke a common tongue. The old Lakota was wise. He knew that a man's heart away from nature becomes hard. He knew that lack of respect for growing living things soon led to lack of respect for humans too. So he's kept his youth close to its softening influence. You know, I think kids today could really benefit from more time outside and more time with nature. I don't think it's such a great idea to keep kids away from nature. Well, the second part of the religion of nature is that there's an overlying spiritual feeling that exists throughout all of nature. Mato Koape says, when a man does a piece of work which is admired by all, we say that it is wonderful. But when we see the changes of day and night, the sun, moon, and stars in the sky, and the changing seasons upon the earth with their ripening fruits, anyone must realize that it is the work of someone more powerful than man. Greatest of all is the sun, without which we could not live. We talk to Wakantanka, and we are sure he hears us, and yet it is hard to explain what we believe about this. Now here's a really good one. Here's this Dakota Sue Wiseman has said this really interesting thing. Tell me what you think he's saying here. Everything as it moves, now and then, here and there, makes stops. The bird as it flies makes stops in one place to make its nest, and in another to rest in its flight. A man, when he goes forth, stops when he wills. So the God has stopped. The sun, which is so bright and beautiful, is one place where he has stopped. The moon, the stars, the winds he has been with. The trees, the animals are all where he has stopped. And the Indians think of these places and sends his prayers there to reach the place where the God has stopped and win help and a blessing. Now, what do you think that means? What does that mean to you? What does that mean when the God has stopped? I was thinking about
And
this.
stop looking.
Who said that?
Joy.
Joy. So what did you say? Say that again.
He just stopped looking. He wasn't paying attention to where he was going and he just lost it.
Well, I had a little different idea. I like that one. I was thinking of it vibrationally, you know.
Ah,
Imbued it with his spirit.
Yeah, yes, because um, vibrationally, uh, let's see, how can I explain this? We have lots of things that are above our visual range of perception. You know, there's gamma rays and X rays and all kinds of stuff that we can't see. But that doesn't mean they're not there. And so as the vibration lowers, finally we get into colors and we can see all the colors, and finally it gets lower than that, and finally it becomes matter. It becomes something tangible. And so when it becomes materialistic like that, the vibration has slowed down so much that it appears to us to be stationary, have stopped. That's how I look at it. So everywhere where he says that everything as it moves now and then, here and there, makes stops. And so the Indian tries to reach these places where the God has stopped. So if the God is always creating things, then when something becomes material, it's like not vibrating. We think of it as being solid, being not vibrational. I don't know. That's my idea. What do you think? What does he mean there? God has stopped.
Reminds me of heart beats and then it rests, and then it beats and then it rests. And sometimes
Heartbeat.
you can hear in between people's words, and in the silence, maybe there's some wisdom.
ooh, I like that.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that. Okay, well, that's something to think about, is what the heck does he mean with that? Anyway, Tatangameni, or Walking Buffalo, says, we were lawless people, but we were on pretty good terms with the Great Spirit, creator and ruler of all. You whites assumed we were savages. You didn't understand our prayers. You didn't try to understand. When we sang our praises to the sun or moon or wind, you said we were worshiping idols without understanding. You condemned us as lost souls just because our form of worship was different from yours. We saw the Great Spirit's work in almost everything: sun, moon, trees, wind, and mountains. Sometimes we approached him through these things. Was that so bad? I think we have a stronger faith than most whites who have called us pagans. Indians living close to nature and nature's ruler are not living in darkness. Do you know that trees talk? Well, they do. They talk to each other, and they'll talk to you too if you listen. Trouble is, white people don't listen. They never learned to listen to the Indians, so I don't suppose they'll listen to other voices in nature. But I have learned a lot from trees, sometimes about the weather, sometimes about animals, sometimes about the Great Spirit. Do you feel the sacredness of things when you're in this forest?
Yes.
You feel like it's you're in a spiritual place. I remember walking through the redwoods with my dad one time, and we came to this great big massive tree, and I remember my first impression was, wow, it feels like we're in a cathedral. It just had that feeling. And so there was a bench there, and so we sat down and marveled at this feeling. And here comes another couple, and the first thing that she says is, wow, this feels like a cathedral. I thought, wow, I'm not the only one. So I think, I think trees talk to you. I think nature talks to us. All kinds of things. Just because they don't have words, they're still communicating. All kinds of things communicate. The wind, weather, trees, the plants, the animals, they all are saying something to us. In fact, if you're in a bad mood and you just go outside and walk around the block, you'll be in a better mood when you come back, because you'll be out there in nature, and nature's always telling you things. Okay, so besides that nature is our teacher and that there's a spiritual feeling throughout nature. The Indian also sought to find the Great Spirit within the workings of his own mind, that he might have a personal relationship with his creator. And this is the best part. This is especially true of the medicine person, who often received divine revelations which showed how the whole tribe might better itself or grow closer to the Great Spirit. Have you ever had a revelation, a divine message of some sort? Yeah, I tell you what, when that happens, it's like, it's such a gift. You just never forget those times. Our religion, Chief Seattle says, is a tradition of our ancestors, the dreams of our old men given them in the solemn hours of the night by the Great Spirit, and the visions of our sachems, and is written in the hearts of the people. So what this says is our religion is the tradition of our ancestors. So traditions kind of implies things handed down, you know, but besides what's handed down, the dreams and vision make it personal. It's like a personal teaching to you specifically about these things. Hemiosis Storm says, a Sundance Way itself is a living thing. It is always growing and turning within the people. It is not to be learned by studying archaic rituals or traditions, but by seeking understanding and then allowing it to grow within your own heart and mind. So there's several ways that you can receive a vision. You know, one of these is fasting. Fasting is always a good way. But you can also go for a vision quest. And whether you fast on your vision quest or not, that's totally up to you. But there's a lot of things that you can learn by having a question in your mind and then going for a walk in the forest and see what comes up. You know, what animals do you see? What plants do you see? What weird things pop up? You know, those are the things you want to pay attention to. And anytime you see an animal that you don't hardly ever see, go look it up. What is the symbology of that? It's trying to tell you something. Although each tribe and nation had its own unique rites and traditions, the individual members of the tribe each had his or her own personal approach or pathway to the Great Spirit, and his or her own personal form of worship. Matu Kuape says, before talking of holy things, we prepare ourselves by offerings. One will fill the pipe and hand it to the other, who will light it and offer it to the sky and earth. They will smoke together and then they will be ready to talk. So everybody's got their own ritual for how you approach the Creator. Ohiesa says, as a child, I understood how to give. I have forgotten that grace since I became civilized. I lived the natural life, whereas now I live the artificial. Any pretty pebble was valuable to me then. Every growing tree an object of reverence. Now I worship with the white man before a painted landscape whose value is estimated in dollars. Thus the Indian is reconstructed as the natural rocks are ground to powder and made into artificial blocks, which may be built into the walls of modern society. The first American mingled with his pride a singular humility. Spiritual arrogance was foreign to his nature and teaching. He never claimed that the power of articulate speech was proof of superiority over the dumb creation. On the other hand, it is to him a perilous gift. He believes profoundly in silence, the sign of a perfect equilibrium. Silence is the absolute poise of balance of body, mind, and spirit. The man who preserves his selfhood is ever calm and shaken by the storms of existence. Not a leaf, as it were, astir on the tree, not a ripple on the surface of the shining pool. His, in the mind of the unlettered sage, is the ideal attitude and conduct of life. If you ask him what is silence, he will answer, it is the great mystery. The holy silence is his voice. If you ask what are the fruits of silence, he will say they are self-control, true courage or endurance, patience, dignity, and reverence. Silence is the cornerstone of character. Do you practice meditation? Do you practice that?
Yes.
I
Yep.
used to play music for a church up here, and I remember one Sunday the preacher asked, "Who prays every day?" And I raised my hand, and nobody else. I was totally shocked. But yes, you need to every day. You got to keep that channel open. Oh my gosh. In the life of the Indian, there is only one inevitable duty, the duty of prayer, the daily recognition of the unseen and eternal. His daily devotions were more necessary to him than daily food. He wakes at daybreak, puts on his moccasins, and steps down to the water's edge. Here he throws handfuls of clear, cold water onto his face or plunges in bodily. After the bath, he stands erect before the advancing dawn, facing the sun as it dances upon the horizon, and offers his unspoken orison. His mate may precede or follow him in his devotions, but never accompanies him. Each soul must meet the morning sun, the new sweet earth, and the great silence alone. And that's a good thing to be doing because there's so much life force in the air in the early morning that if you go out there, in the first rays of the sun, before it gets very high, you have to get it before the ozone layers start. And breathe real deep, like 10 times early morning. I mean, not when it's 2 below zero outside. But anyway, you can get really charged up because there's so much life force in the air in the mornings. Ohiyesa goes on to say, whenever in the course of the daily hunt, the red hunter comes upon a scene that is strikingly beautiful or sublime, a black thundercloud with the rainbow's glowing arch above the mountain, a white waterfall in the heart of a green gorge, or a vast prairie tinged with the blood red of sunset, he pauses for an instant in the attitude of worship. He sees no need for setting apart one day in 7 as a holy day, since to him all days are God's. So when is the best time to pray? You need to just pray in the morning. You pray before you go to bed. When is the time to pray?
Anytime.
Anytime, especially when you see something worth
Yeah.
appreciating. When I lived in LA, it was mostly cement, and so anytime there was a tree in the sidewalk, I would like focus on that because that's where the mother was. She wasn't too, you couldn't find her too much out there. Anyway, so you have to just focus on what you're happy about, what you're grateful for. Chief Luther Standing Mayor says, I'm going to venture that the man who sat on the ground in his teepee meditating on life and its meaning, what's the meaning of life? Accepting the kinship of all creatures, that we're related to all these creatures, everything, fin-furred and feathered and everything, and acknowledging the unity with the universe of things. Everything was created by the Creator, and we too. So we are related to everything, has got the Creator's energy in it. And everything has life force because it's been created by the Creator. It's got part of Him in it. And so everything is alive. Everything can speak to us. And we can acknowledge unity with that universe of things. When we do this, we're infusing into his being the true essence of civilization. And when native men left off this form of development, his humanization was retarded in growth. If you meditate, even just for a few minutes, 5 minutes, if you can't do it for longer than that, just try it for a little bit. And the longer that you can do it, the more you get back. It's like if all you do is say thank you, thank you that my eyes are open and that I'm alive today. And I woke up and I got out of bed. And I've got a place to stay and it's nice and cozy and I've got people that love me. You know, think of all the things that you're thankful for. What if you woke up tomorrow with only the things that you were thankful for today? How much stuff would you have? So be thankful for what you've got. That's the key to getting more, is to be thankful for what you have, because why would he want to give you more if you're not thankful for what you've got already? So let's see. We have time. Oh, yes, we do. Okay. So what is the purpose of this study in Native American thought? Why are we doing this?
To feel better, to to appreciate what we have.
Okay. Well, his idea for the purpose of this was to straighten out our thinking. See, things. That's what he says in that first step, is to acquiring and maintaining clarity of thought and emotions. So just to straighten out our thinking, to get rid of all this stuff that I can't really say that we've been taught that's not true. So, okay. So most religions, there's a general teaching for the masses and a deeper set of teachings for the few. Why do you think this is so? Why do they keep some for just the kivas or just the inner circle or just, why do they do that?
I don't think they would all understand. I don't think they would be prepared.
That's right. Yes, they wouldn't understand because they're not interested. You know, not everybody's interested in this. Some people just like to be, you know, a family person or a hunter or something else. They're just philosophy. What's that for? You know. So because of that, who did they teach the philosophy to?
Those that showed an interest
That's
or
right.
had
Or
a
a talent.
calling.
Or they asked, they hung around and they bugged them long enough and they asked them questions. And what's this? How come you're doing that? That's how you get taught, is by asking questions. So why are these secret teachings now being given to anyone who's interested?
Because it's time.
Yes, it's time. Well, because of Eli's vision, actually. Because boy, if you asked any other tribe, they would say, what? You're not doing that. No, 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 that's not good. You can't be true, it can't be right. It's got to be false.
Well, it helped the world.
Yes, yes, it sure would.
It's really, his
Great.
vision is amazing because you don't know what you don't know. And if you're not
right.
raised with these teachings, you have no way of having the greater understanding. So it's so beautiful that he has done this and that you're passing it on. So everybody can.
I agree.
Yep. So how is it you can know that these concepts are true? If I tell you don't believe this, so how can you figure out if they're true or not?
Nature.
Nature. So you go out in nature and you say, okay, or nature, are you my teacher? What are you going to teach me today? What have you got for me to learn?
You have to be
then-
open.
That's right.
to-
You have to be open to finding out. You can't just say, this is garbage, without even, trying to find out. So yes. So you have to go out and see if this jives with your own personal experience, because the people with the most personal experience have the most wisdom. So you need to go figure this out for yourself. Does this sound right to you? And why do we include quotations from other tribes if Eli was Cherokee?
Because they've said it for a long time.
Because why?
They've said it for a long time back
Yes,
through the years.
yes, yes.
To
And
show
a lot
unity.
of-
And they all have the same foundation.
And it
They do.
solidifies the teachings are true if so many different tribes are teaching the same general ideas.
yeah.
But in
Yeah.
Even the
Teaching
different
unity.
religions.
I think the Great Spirit speaks to us all similarly, and people, interpret what they hear, what they feel. And so it comes out a little different, but it's basically the same message. Let's see. So what are the three concepts of the religion of nature? What are the three things? First, that she's our teacher. Everything, what's it say? All truth can be found in nature. So she's our teacher. She's our first teacher. And what's the second part?
Practice,
Let's say that again.
practice.
I didn't get that.
Practice.
Okay, I'm not hearing it. So the second part is an overlying spiritual feeling that exists throughout all of nature. When you walk into nature, you go out in the ocean, you go up in the mountains, anywhere you're in nature, it feels like there's a spiritual connection. I was amazed. I went through the desert just a while back, and I'm one of these people. I gotta have trees. Trees are my thing. I gotta have trees. But out in the desert, there was a weird feeling. There was just a different feeling. It was there's a very different feeling in the desert. So even there, I could tell that there was a spiritual feeling. And the third part is that you're trying to find this workings of the Great Spirit within your own mind, that you might have a personal relationship. So in the very first thing you want to do is meditate. You got to go say hi once in a while. If you're going to develop a friendship, you got to check in. You got to say hi once in a while. So don't be a stranger. Let's see. Anything else? We got to cover it all. What is the silence? Why is that important? What is the silence? So you
Reverence.
meditate.
And self-control.
You meditate for a while and you think, oh, nothing's happening. I don't hear anything. What's the big deal? So what is the big deal? What's the silence? What do you get out of that?
But it's patience, and it's self-control and connection. And it gives you the ability to be able to hear or see or just know the message.
Yes.
You
I
can
have
think.
always thought that that it's like climbing a mountain, and that the more you meditate, the higher you go on the mountain. And so when you stop, when you don't meditate for a day or two, then you kind of come back down a little bit. But when every time you meditate, you go back up just a little bit. So if you do it every day, then you just get higher and higher and higher and higher. You don't ever come back down a little bit. You just keep on going up. So try it. Try that. Try even just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just say thank you. That's all you do. Just say thank you, and then stay there for a few minutes and just sit and listen. Say whatever you want to tell me. I'm ready. I'm open. Tell me. And you might not hear anything. Most of the time, I don't hear anything. But I'm telling you, later, when you're wondering about something, all of a sudden you'll have this thought that I don't know where it came from, but it's must have been downloaded when I wasn't looking, because all of a sudden I've got the answer to something I was wondering about. So try that. Try meditating. Just say hi. Anyway. So there we are. That's the first part of the religion of nature. And next time we will talk about our spiritual relationship. And every time we get a little bit more. So each lesson builds upon the one before. So try not to miss any, because it all kind of works together. You have any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
I recall reading that if you were going to go further and have the initiation and you wanted to study more, that you needed to save your notebook. Does that mean I need to print everything out that I'm doing on the computer, the questions and the answers, to put into the notebook?
Well, you don't have to. I mean, I always did. But you don't have to. I mean, it's just to get the initiation, you need to have a notebook with all 8 lessons printed out in it so that whoever is doing your initiation, if it's not me, then they will know that, yes, you did get this lessons because you got the stuff.
We send that in to you? Each lesson, do we send to you?
No, please don't do
Okay.
that. Because-
You don't want all our lessons.
no. No, I don't want to do 65 lessons
No.
every. No. So yeah, if you come to these classes, then you don't have to turn in your lessons answers. But you might want to write them down while you're thinking about it, while right after class when it's fresh in your mind.
Thank you.
Be helpful. So I will see you next time. Looky here, a whole hour went by.
Nice to meet everyone.
Yes, wonderful. Thank
Nice,
you.
nice meeting y'all.
Nice
Thank
to
you
meet
for
everybody.
coming.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Misty.
Welcome.
Thanks, Misty.
We'll see you next time.